Hello everyone, and thanks for visiting Bluebeam Back to Basics. Today we'll be talking about Bluebeam Studio URLs. For those of you I have not met personally, you can reach me at that phone number and email address, and we encourage you to visit our website where you can learn all about our Bluebeam training program. So what is a URL? It's an industry term that stands for Uniform Resource Locator. Think of it as a cell phone number or a street address, something that uniquely identifies a resource on the web. Now, how does that work with Bluebeam Studio? One of the ways URLs are used with Bluebeam Studio is with a Bluebeam Studio project share link. Now, you may have seen one of these, used one of these, or generated one of these. You just go into a Studio project, you select any document you want, you right-click and say, I want to create a share link. And it creates a URL, like the one shown at the bottom there. The last 6 digits are some randomly generated code at the time of creation, instead of those question marks that I'm showing in my slide. But these are very, very common. And then when you take that and you share that URL with someone else, when they use it, when they click on it, what they'll see is something like this that pops up on their screen. They do not need Bluebeam to use a share link. They simply need to click on the link and go to this page, which pops up immediately, and hit the download button. And whatever that file is, this one happens to be a PDF, but it could be a Word document, a MicroStation drawing, whatever you've sent them, they can hit that download button and it'll immediately download a copy of that, and they do not need Bluebeam. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about using URLs to access your Bluebeam Studio projects and your Bluebeam Studio sessions. Here's an example of how you can use a URL to launch Bluebeam Review, log into Bluebeam Studio, go to a specific studio project with nothing but a URL. This URL would work if your studio project was numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now this URL will not work if you attempt to use it. It's purely a sample. Replace the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 with your own project ID. The key to this URL working is the section of the URL highlighted in red. Be sure to include the word project ID and not simply ID, which I'll discuss in just a few minutes. But is that all you can do with Studio projects and URLs? Actually, no. Let's say your project has 3 folders. It's got directory level 1, then it's got a subfolder, then it's got a sub-subfolder. And you actually want to go into the project and bypass everything and go straight to that 3rd level folder. You can do that with this URL. You can put in the URL, put in the project ID, put in folder level 1 name / folder level 2 name / folder level 3 or 4 or 5. Just depends on how you want to build your URL. And if you do it properly, when you share that URL with anybody who has access to that project and to that folder, they would be able to click a single button and open it up immediately. But is that all you can do with URLs in Studio projects? No. You could even go further with this, and you could point to a specific file with a specific file name and extension in a specific Studio project location. Notice I didn't say a PDF file. This is any file. So if I had a MicroStation drawing, if I had a Revit model, if I had an Excel spreadsheet, it really doesn't matter what the file type is. This URL example would, when someone clicked on it, if they had the right privileges, it would automatically launch Studio, go to that project, go to the specified folder location, and automatically open the specified file. Now, if that happens to be a non-PDF file, then it's going to launch the native application you have that's associated with that. I'll do this live in a minute and show you this example with a MicroStation drawing. Now let's take a look at Studio Sessions. Studio Sessions work exactly like Studio Projects when it comes to the URL. The difference is the syntax, what I've got highlighted in red there. If I had a session numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I could access it using this URL, but the key is to put join.html question mark ID equals, not project ID equals. That's the difference in the URL between trying to access a studio project and access a studio session. Now, studio sessions don't have folders and subfolders and subfolders, so that's not an option for the URL. But they do have files. You can have many files in a studio session. They all have to be PDF files, but you can have many of them. So the question then is, can you use the syntax to point to a session and point to a specific PDF file name? And sadly, that does not work. But just by getting to the studio session directly through a URL will save you a lot of time. So let me show you some live examples of this. I'm going to close down everything on my computer except Microsoft Excel, which is on my other screen, and I've got an Excel spreadsheet full of URLs. If I want to access my AIA project, I would simply come over here, click on that URL link. It launches my browser, which says, do you want to use Bluebeam Drawings or do you want to use Review to go and access this project? I'll say Review. I could easily dismiss this. I leave it open for demonstration purposes, and now it's going to launch Review. I have to have the proper privileges for this to work, but it's going to go into Bluebeam. It's going to go into Studio. I have set it so that it always logs me in. I don't have to give it my password. It's going to go to my list of 30 or so different projects. It's going to open the correct project and go right to the root level. That's one example of one URL. Now, I could leave this open, and as I run through these URLs, it would jump around for me. But I'm going to close it down so that you know it's working each time. So now I'm going to do an example of going to a specific project and going to a specific subfolder within that project. Now I've got one called URL Demo, and it's got 3 levels: dir level 1, dir level 2, dir level 3. This link I'm hitting now is telling it to go to dir level 2. So it's launching Review. It's logging me in. It's going to the Studio server. It's finding the project called URL Demo. It's opened that project, and it has taken me directly to dir level 2. Dir level 3 is a child of that, so we can see it's taken me directly there. My next example, I will actually tell it to go to this project 3 levels down and open that specific file. And again, I'll close Bluebeam so that you can see it live each time. I click on the URL, I tell it to launch Review, and just let it happen. And now that file has been checked out and opened so that I can modify it. And in the Studio project, it's protected from anyone else having it open simultaneously. When I'm done, I'll close it, and I'll either check it in, update the server, standard operating procedures here. I'm just going to do an undo checkout. I'll do it again with a MicroStation design file so that you can see it with a non-PDF. I just clicked on the URL, I hit Review, tell it to open. It's logging into the server. It's finding the proper project, the proper folder, subfolder, whatever combination is specified, finding the specific file I want, checking it out, opening it, and launching the native application that's associated with it. One last example of these URLs will be a studio session. I'll click on the URL for a studio session. Because I'm going to a session, it's got a slightly different behavior. It's launching Review. It's logging me into Studio. It's going to the appropriate studio session. And now I'm in and able to select the documents I need and immediately start being a project participant. That's it. I hope you find this video helpful, and you'll review the other videos available as well.